People finally wake up. They realize it's a fraud and that they've been conned into it. But in the short run, they benefit. Everybody benefits because it's counterfeit and people are accepting it. We're describing here can't be calculated by the Keynesian. It's not easy to correct. It is not just an economic matter, it's a political matter, it's a financial matter, it is a matter of social stability. And why we're in such a mess today is that is on the horizon. The questions we are asking today is, exactly what it is. And I gave you a little hint there on what the crack up boom is. We'll talk some more about that. But also, are there signs of it? Are there signs of the crack up boom, or is this just another recession? We've gone through recessions. I can remember recessions all the way back to the 40s, right after World War II. The recessions come and go. And because of our situation as having the reserve currency of the world and our willingness to spend endlessly because we can get away with it and we can manipulate interest rates, this has served our interests very well. And the Federal Reserve and Congress, through their mutual agreement, the Fed would print the money and the Congress would help spend the money, but the Fed would also do things secretly. And in a way, you'd have to say, well, they've been relatively successful in doing this and getting out of the recession. But eventually they can't do it. They run into a problem, and that is the crack up boom. And this is a very serious problem. Currently, as we speak, there's a few people having a meeting up in Jackson Hole or wherever it is. And they're powerful people. They determine what the money supply will be and what the interest rates should be. And they have a lot of influence and they pretend that they're knowledgeable. But the real farce of it all is the pretense is that is all there is. They're pretending that they know how to regulate and run an economy, but they're in big trouble right now. And the country's in big trouble. It's made me think about a warning from Mises. He talked about the crack up boom. He talks a lot about the business cycle, but what is the final conclusion? Because I get this question a lot of times. What is the final conclusion of this, and when is it going to come? And Mises deals with this, and the ending, if you don't change your ways, is very, very difficult because it is a crack up. And it's just not a recession. It's just not a depression. It's major economic and political activity that goes on, and a real threat to the people, and a tremendous readjustment of wealth. The wealth is dissipated. A lot of wealth is destroyed. A lot of wealth is taken out of the hands of the middle class. Even though it's been doing that right along, it gets very bad. But this is something people should understand. It's called the crack up boom. People finally wake up. They realize it's a fraud and that they've been conned into it. But in the short run, they benefit. Everybody benefits because it's counterfeit and people are accepting it. And if you think of it in terms of counterfeiting, and people reckon, hey, all that money we have, it's counterfeit. So they want to, boy, can I pass it on? They try to pass it on and buy stuff. And of course, that leads, to the real crash. And it's a confidence factor. We're describing here can't be calculated by the Keynesian. They can't, even if they agreed with these cycles, they can't say, well, we have this computer is going to measure the money supply here, and the regulations here, put it all together and have 17 pages of formula and say, well, on January 10th, the whole thing comes about. There's a subjective element there, and it is a confidence factor. And once the people understand it's not going to go away, the expectations causes the momentum. And because on the early years of the inflation, the people have too much trust and too much hope in the government that it goes longer than anybody dreams it should. But then when it hits, it's worse than they ever expected. But of course, people like Mises and other Austrian economists aren't too shocked that it is that bad. It's the bigger surprise that it lasted so long. You know, the markets know what's going on. That's the people and how they're reacting. And markets, when governments get them out of whack, too much money, interest rates, artificial, and all those things that they do, and prices going up much too fast, the market is saying you have to liquidate. But the market is always demanding it work. I think so often about the Bretton Woods Agreement because it was really serving our interests and people warned about it. But, you know, for a long time, it is not easy to correct. It is not just an economic matter, it's a political matter, it's a financial matter, it is a matter of social stability. And why we're in such a mess today is that is on the horizon. At the same time, it's aggravated tremendously with this great bubble of regulations with lockdown. The market was saying, you know, this can't be. You're putting too much money in and the gold that you have it is inadequate. And then it took a lot of years until finally in 1971, it broke down. So the facts, you know, ruled over the politician. And that's the way this is right now. The facts, they cannot contain this. Well, I should say it that way. They can sort of contain it, but they can't correct it because of the political factors, because the people are there, they're accustomed to it. And the most recent history shows, well, the Fed usually pulls us out of it. Congress will pull us out of it. Look how well they sent those, look how quickly they sent all those checks out for COVID. People got checks right away and started feeling better. But that is all temporary. If you really had that, I think we'd be back on our feet rather quickly. But the idea that we can, you know, take advantage of other people through the inflation system is one thing. But the whole idea that when people need something, they sort of still reject the notion that they should be able to steal from their neighbors, even though there's too much of that going on. But they ask the government. We have to understand that when the government comes in and destroys the wealth and has wealth redistribution through the printing of money, that is theft. And it's a moral problem as much as it's an economic problem. And you can't say the people, you know, should follow the rules and not steal and cause violence. And yet the government can do it. That means the government has to be reined in. If the government is reined in and their sole effort should be to make sure that people have their freedom and a right to keep what they earn, believe me, I think our crisis would be over rather quickly. Are there signs of the crack-up boom, or is this just another recession? If you don't change your ways, it's very, very difficult because it is a crack-up. People understand it's not going to go away. The expectations causes the momentum. You have to understand that when the government comes in and destroys the wealth